Imagine a man who looked at the night sky and saw not just stars, but a giant electrical circuit. A man who, in the era of kerosene lamps and steam engines, predicted the emergence of the atomic bomb, quantum computers, and smartphones. He didn't just discover the laws of physics, he rewrote the rules by which our universe operates. His name became synonymous with genius, and his disheveled hair and stuck-out tongue became the primary symbol of science in popular culture. On April 18, 1955, in a Princeton hospital, a 76-year-old man passed away quietly. In his bedside table, they found 12 pages of text written in dense handwriting, his final attempt to create a theory of everything, a formula that would unite all the forces of creation into one elegant equation. He refused surgery, saying, "I want to go when I want. It is tasteless to prolong life artificially." With his death, an entire era passed, but the world he left behind was never the same again. Albert Einstein didn't just change science, he changed our very perception of reality, time, and space. Who was he really? A distracted professor who forgot his own house number? Or the greatest rebel in human history who dared to challenge Isaac Newton himself? Today, we journey through the mind of the man who made time slow down. The story of the greatest genius began quite ordinary. On March 14th, 1879, in the German city of Ulm, a boy was born to the family of a small electrical shop owner, Hermann Einstein. Albert's mother, Pauline, was terrified. The infant's head seemed too large and angular. Moreover, little Albert began to speak very late, almost at the age of 3. His parents seriously feared that their child suffered from developmental delays. He did not play with noisy peers and disliked toy soldiers or marches. He could sit for hours in solitude, building card houses of incredible complexity, up to 14 stories high. At the age of 5, an event occurred that Einstein would later call a miracle. His father gave him a pocket compass. The boy turned the device with trembling hands, but the needle, as if glued to an invisible thread, always pointed north. In that moment, a thought pierced young Albert. There must be something deeply hidden behind things. An invisible force governs this world. He would carry this childhood wonder at the mysteries of nature throughout his entire life. School was torture for Einstein. In the Munich gymnasium, Prussian discipline reigned supreme. The teachers resembled sergeants, and the students were like obedient robots, memorizing dates and names. Einstein, with his slow speech and habit of pondering every word, seemed like a dullard to his educators. One teacher flatly told him, "Nothing will ever become of you, Einstein." Albert was irritated by the need to blindly obey authority. He believed that imagination was more important than knowledge, because knowledge is limited, while imagination embraces the entire world. At 16, he dropped out of school, renounced his German citizenship, and followed his family to Italy, and later to Switzerland. It was in Switzerland, in the quiet town of Bern, that what historians call the Year of Miracles occurred, 1905. Albert was 26 years old. He was a lowly clerk in a third-class patent office. His academic career had failed. He couldn't secure an assistant position at a university because professors found him too arrogant and undisciplined. Every day, he reviewed patent applications, mostly devices for synchronizing clocks at train stations. And while his colleagues discussed the lunch menu, Einstein, in his spare moments, was turning physics upside down on scraps of paper. In that year, he published 4 papers, each deserving of a Nobel Prize. In the first, he proved the existence of atoms. In the second, he explained the nature of light, stating that light is not only a wave, but also a stream of particles. But the third paper was a true explosion. It was titled "On the Electrodynamics of Moving Bodies." In it, Einstein introduced the special theory of relativity. Before Einstein, the world was simple and understandable. It was believed that time flowed the same for everyone in the universe, for a farmer in the Alps, and for a star in another galaxy. Einstein said, "No." He conducted a thought experiment. What if he could ride a beam of light and race upon it through space? He realized that the speed of light is constant. It is the absolute limit of the universe. But for this speed to remain constant, something had to be sacrificed. And that sacrifice was time. He explained this with an example a child could understand. Imagine twins. One stays on Earth, while the other flies away on a rocket, moving near the speed of light. When the traveler returns, he will find that his brother has aged by decades, while for him only a few months have passed. Time is not a rigid ruler, but an elastic band. It can stretch and contract depending on how fast you move. The world gasped. The foundation upon which science had stood for 300 years began to crumble. Soon after, he derived his famous formula linking mass and energy. It stated that even in a tiny piece of matter, a colossal, unimaginable energy is contained. This was the theoretical prediction of the atomic age. Einstein showed that matter is simply very highly condensed energy, but the scientist did not stop there. It took him another 10 years of agonizing reflection to create the general theory of relativity. He took aim at the most sacred concept, Newton's gravity. Newton viewed gravity as an invisible magical force pulling objects together. Einstein proposed a different picture. Imagine a stretched trampoline fabric. If you place a heavy ball in the center, the fabric will curve. If you launch a small marble along the edge, it will roll down the curve toward the center. Gravity is not a force. It is a distortion, a curvature of space and time itself. Massive objects, stars and planets, simply dent the space beneath them. In 1919, during a solar eclipse, British astronomers confirmed it. The light from distant stars indeed bends as it passes the sun, exactly as Einstein had predicted. The next morning, he woke up as the most famous person on the planet. Newspapers screamed, "Revolution in science! Newton's laws overthrown!" Einstein turned into a living icon. He was invited by kings and presidents. Crowds of people stormed his lectures, hoping to understand even a single word of his theories. However, fame had a dark side. In 1920s Germany, Nazism was rising. Einstein's theories were labeled Jewish physics. His books were burned in bonfires, and a bounty of 50,000 marks was placed on his head. In 1933, when Hitler came to power, Einstein, who was in the US at the time, realized there was no turning back. He left his homeland forever and settled in Princeton at the Institute for Advanced Study. In America, he became a symbol of freedom of thought. His image, the lack of socks, the stretched sweaters, and the mane of white hair, became the embodiment of pure intellect, unburdened by everyday conventions. But it was here that he faced his greatest tragedy. In 1939, learning that German physicists had come close to splitting the uranium nucleus, Einstein signed a letter to President Roosevelt. It warned of the possibility of creating a new type of ultra-powerful bomb. This letter gave birth to the Manhattan Project. Einstein himself did not participate in the development of the atomic bomb. The government considered him too unreliable and left-leaning. Now, when he heard the news of Hiroshima in August 1945, He covered his face with his hands and said, "Woe is me." For the rest of his life, he was a staunch pacifist, advocating for a world government and a total ban on nuclear weapons. He felt a personal responsibility that his greatest discovery had been used for human destruction. The last decades of Albert's life were spent attempting to find a unified field theory. He wanted to create a single formula that would explain everything, from the movement of galaxies to the vibration of an electron. He argued with Niels Bohr and the creators of quantum mechanics. Einstein could not reconcile with the idea that at the microscopic level, the world is ruled by chance. His famous phrase, "God does not play dice with the universe," became the motto of his resistance to the new physics. He believed the world was logical, orderly, and harmonious. Einstein was remarkably simple in communication. He could spend hours explaining physics to a little girl who came to him for help with her arithmetic homework. He loved playing the violin, saying that if he hadn't become a physicist, he surely would have been a musician. The music of Mozart and Bach was, for him, a reflection of the very harmony of the universe he sought in numbers. When he died, pathologist Thomas Harvey removed the genius's brain without the family's permission. He wanted to understand, how did Einstein's brain differ from that of an ordinary person? Research lasted decades. It turned out that the area of the brain responsible for mathematical thinking and spatial imagination was 15% wider than normal in Albert. Moreover, his brain had significantly more glial cells, which provide nutrients to neurons. His mind was physiologically tuned to process colossal amounts of information. But Einstein's greatness is not in the structure of his neurons. It is in his ability to doubt the obvious. He taught us that truth is often hidden behind the veil of habitual perception. We are used to thinking of space as emptiness and time as the ticking of a clock. Einstein showed that these are living, breathing entities that interact with us. Today, Einstein's legacy is everywhere. The GPS system in your phone wouldn't work without corrections for relativity. Time on satellites flows slightly faster than on Earth. Lasers, solar panels, the study of black holes and gravitational waves, all of this stands on the shoulders of the man from the Bern Patent Office. He predicted the existence of black holes back when they were considered a mathematical error. In 2015, scientists recorded gravitational waves, the ripples in the fabric of space, he wrote about a century earlier. Albert Einstein didn't just open new horizons, he gave us the courage to ask questions. He showed that anyone with imagination and persistence can challenge the gods and peek into the Creator's blueprints. He departed, leaving us with a world that has become much more complex, but also infinitely more beautiful. In one of his last letters, he wrote, "People like us, who believe in physics, know that the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion. Perhaps he is even now out there somewhere, riding his beam of light, continuing his eternal argument with the universe.